many of you guys went out last night? Yeah, some of you guys out there. Okay, nice. Um, how was it for you guys? I want to hear feedback. What'd you guys learn? What'd you guys experience? Anybody want to share? Sure. I know you had some last night. You had your first approach at a
Oh
bar.
yeah. Um, I did my first approach. I just went up to the lady and just told her, "Thank you for being so sexy. I've seen so many guys approach you, and you're gorgeous." And she reacted real well to it. She was the hottest girl at the bar at the time,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was my first approach, and I left. So.
It, it's what was that like before you went into it?
At first, I had to work up to it. I was nervous, kind of, but you know, you just have to like go for it. Then at the moment, you know, it feels good, like real good afterwards.
Okay.
Like a lot of energy afterwards.
Good. So if you don't mind getting a little bit more personal about it, what kind of stories were coming up for you? Like what kind of thoughts surrounding it? Like I'm not good enough or anything like that going on? Like, why would she talk to me and when you rejected anyway? Things like that.
Yeah, I just felt like I, you know, shouldn't go. Like it was a waste of time. Like just gonna like, you know, get rejected. But you know, I just had to like put in my mind that was just going there just for the, you know, just for the experience, I guess.
Good.
Just to, you know, open up and get there.
Good. So how different was her response from what you thought it would be?
Way different, way different. She said that, you know, thank you so much. You're different from the other guys. That was real sweet. And
Yeah.
so she really, really liked it.
Yeah. You had some heavy energy last night, but it looked good.
Yeah, it
Like
was.
you're feeling your shit.
Yeah, it was good.
And that's the difference. And that's the difference between you and the other guys who are approaching her. The other guys are coming up in their head. I saw it. They were talking to her, chatting for a bit. It looked like it wasn't really going anywhere. And you came up. Your energy was kind of like planted, solid. You're feeling all your shit. And that's what made it. That's what made her see you as somebody different, right? Because you weren't just this talking head.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then afterwards, I approached a second group. It just the words came out of my mouth. I didn't mean to say this, but you know, I just told her that she was fucking sexy, and you know, their reaction, they were like, oh my god, did you just say that? They were all like, you know, they were smiling. The girls were giggling, and I just have to work on keep the conversation going. I guess maybe they were nervous as well. I don't know.
Yeah, that's common for us. When a girl gets nervous, it makes us nervous because we don't know what to do with it. It's like, oh my God, she's nervous. A lot of us take it as rejection too, and the truth is, it's just like she's not really comfortable yet.
Right.
So it takes a little time sometimes. But that was awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. How about anybody else? Anybody else want to share their first time experiences or any experiences they had that was out the normal?
I thought I did a lot more approaches than I did, but I thought about it this morning and I was like, oh, I think I only did 3, plus I complimented a girl on her phone.
Nice.
And they weren't great. It felt very much like they were just not impressed, and you know, kind of move along sort of energy that I was getting from them. So.
Okay.
But I went out. So.
Yeah, you showed up. Yeah, I saw you do. I forget which one I saw you do.
What you're trying to get me to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like a dress. You want to do with the dress?
Yeah, you talked to her, right?
Like,
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a girl. She had gone with her friends to the dance floor.
yeah.
Okay. Did you ever eventually talk to her?
I never did,
Okay.
but I talked to a girl that was kind of trailing behind him.
Okay.
So,
Good. Awesome,
and
man.
she was like, okay.
Yeah, 1%, man. 1%. Like, the 1% really do add up. I mean, we like to discount our 1%. It was like, oh, it wasn't a girl I wanted to talk to or this and that. But it's like you did make an attempt, and your body memorizes those attempts that you make, and over time you start to get better and better. So right now you're not talking directly to the girl you want to talk to. Next thing you know, you are, and then you might have conversation piece problems, and then you get that together. And next thing you get the next piece of the puzzle, and then it's like it's all just really smooth sailing after a certain time. So congratulations on that. That's badass. Somebody else had their hand up too. Who was it? How about you?
I did about 8 approaches all night. I opened really good, like I would get their attention and everything. But then once the conversation starts rolling, I feel like not particularly nervous, not nervous in clubs. On day game, I would be nervous, but I'll be like I would feel like I'm like too eager or try hard or like high energy. Even one of the coaches, Josh, he was telling me that, yeah, you're a bit high energy, you need to ground.
Good. So did you notice the difference when you did ground?
Yeah,
That's cool, man. Yeah, once you ground, you realize you really start to say less because you're more feeling your legs, you're feeling your body, like all that kind of stuff. Where you're not feeling like you're having to overcompensate by asking questions just to keep the conversation going. It's like it's really about just chilling out and allowing yourself to feel the girl. And you can't feel the girl if you're just constantly throwing things at her nonstop. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? When you just kind of chill out and feel her. She'll keep talking. Like, she'll invite you. She'll ask you questions and stuff like that, and you just respond and kind of enjoy the moment. All right.
Yeah, for that kind of thing, like, if you're feeling yourself, she will be giving you, like, she'll try to re-engage you.
Yeah.
Just feeling yourself.
Yeah. Because like I say, you're not that talking robot. You're more of a person with feeling now, and she can connect to you. That's why she cares to ask you questions. So cool, man. Anybody else?
I got my first lap.
Oh, I thought you were about to say lap dance. I was gonna say what? You got your first lap? Good. So you got it up. You got it out the way. Yeah, cool. Hey, bring it up. That's cool. I mean, because what is that other than you really facing probably your biggest fear around approaching women, right? I'm gonna get slapped, I'm gonna get yelled at, somebody's gonna see me doing this, they're gonna, ostracize me and be embarrassed. How'd you feel after you got slapped?
How I felt after I got slapped?
Yeah.
I was just shocked. I mean, I thought she was playing. I was just looking at her hand just going in slow motion. The whole time she's just playing, because I had like 4 drinks, and by the time she was here, like, it only hit me when it hit me, It's just like, holy shit.
What did you say to her to initiate the slap?
Oh man, it's kind of a long story. It's like a 10-minute story. I mean, just talk to me afterwards. Because if I tell you,
What's the Cliff Notes version? Give us the Cliff Notes version, like the 1-paragraph version, just so we can learn.
So everybody was talking to her friend because she was so sexy, and I kept watching her all night. Like, at least I think like 5 of you approached her. And I was watching, like, you guys talking to her, and like she was really nice. At the end, she just kind of told everybody, thanks. I saw her being kind of interested in one guy, but so, and then I talked to her friend. Her friend was like this short, thick, fat girl. And like, Zen was saying you shouldn't like exclude anybody, but like I just thought, well, I like cute girls, and I'm gonna go say hi to her because whatever. Just to say hi. I wasn't like trying to have any message to her. And when I said this thing to her, she was like, oh yeah. I said, everybody's done hitting on his friend tonight. And then she was like, yeah, I'm used to it, but I have a boyfriend, so I don't care. And then you wouldn't, whatever. After that, I just kind of went and did my own thing. And then it's like 2 hours later, I talked to that girl, by the way. And God told me, dude, what did you say? She was killing you, the sexy girl. And to make a long story short, like maybe an hour, 2 hours later, they came over and I'm sitting there talking to Jim, and the fat girl was like pointing at me like this, and I was like, what? So I get up and I'm just like, what the fuck? I'm trying to think like what's happening. So she goes like this, like, fuck you. And then and that's what happened. She came up to me and then she started swinging like this. And I was like,
But it wasn't even the one you talked to.
no, and then the guys I talked to, like 2 guys, they told me when you talk to that girl, you basically told her she's ugly. And I didn't even know, like, I'm so like bad in like social situations.
That's why we're learning, right?
Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. Like,
Hey, at least we heard it.
Yeah, that's a unique one, man. That's a one-off experience for sure, dude. So, good, man. You sound like you weren't reactive to it, so that's pretty good. All right, so cool, man. Anybody else before we kick it on? How about you?
I was talking to this one girl, and like, so normally, like, when it's silence, I don't like feel myself. I'll think of something to throw at her.
Mm-hmm.
But I let it happen, like, you feel a jolt of energy off, but then it's like, I'm just gonna relax. I felt my legs, like my calves for the first time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it was really cool. And then she asked me questions. Like, you can just chill and enjoy the environment. So, that was huge.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it works wonders when you feel your legs. When you tell guys to feel their legs, the concept of it is to make sense. Like, when you feel your legs, yeah, just be aware of where your legs are. and make that your priority. Like 80% of that, 20% on the conversation. All right, because it's all about how you really relate into your body. So when you're actually talking to somebody, they can actually feel you inside of your body. I mean, because you're not talking from inside your body, you just have in your head, and you just probably just asking random questions that you really don't even care to be asking in the first place, and that's why it's not going anywhere. So, you know, we get into this workshop, and a lot of us come because we like Brian's principles on stepping into tension, right? And some of us take it further than others do take it. And I remember once I really got the idea of like stepping into tension changes your life, I was just like really addicted to it. And so I remember after the first workshop I took with Brian, I bought a ticket to Japan. I always wanted to go there, and I was like sick of waiting for my friends to go, so I bought a ticket and I went. It was like the most amazing experience I've ever had, right? And I remember just being like, what next? What next? What next? Because I felt capable of handling like high levels of tension now, or at least they were high to me at the time. So we were doing a workshop in Romania. I was a student in it, and workshop was over. I was supposed to go back home to LA, back to my job, my 9 to 5 or whatever, and do that. And I was just like, I don't really want to do that because I was feeling like I wanted to just be in Europe for a bit. Like, I wanted to just stay there because the energy of it was just like I hadn't experienced. I was so used to being in LA my whole life and not ever having this type of life, traveling and stuff. And that's what everybody really wants, right? That's what I wanted. And so I kind of decided to quit my job right there on the spot. And I was at the job for about 10 years. And I remember sitting there feeling all this tension build up as I'm like writing this email to my boss, like, yo, I need more time. And I know they weren't going to give me more time. And I was like, are you really going to go through with this? And I was like, yeah. All right, so I went through with it. I quit the job. I stayed in Romania for about 2 more weeks, I think it was. Probably the greatest time of my life. And I came back to LA. I didn't have a job. Actually, I did have a job when I came back to LA. They were actually expecting me to be there that Monday. And I didn't go, and they called me. And they're like, where you at? And I was like, oh, I thought you guys would fire me. Because I was going 2 weeks without permission. So anyways, I quit the job, and I started going to the beach every day because what I really wanted to do was I really wanted to learn how to get the approaching thing down. I really wanted to practice the principles that Brian was teaching, like grounding, feeling your legs, containing, because I saw it work, but I didn't have enough time to just do it consistently every day. And I wanted that big block of time where I can just do it every day for like maybe a month or 2 straight or whatever the case was. And so when I quit my job, I literally had pennies and some coins in this fucking mason jar. And I would grab a handful of it, drive down to the beach just to pay for parking to be there. And that's all the money I had. And I would eat when I get home. And I would just go out every day, probably about like 8 to 10 hours sometimes. I'll just be out there all day, just approaching women. And I remember the first couple of days I went, especially in the morning, like the second day, it was just like, why are you going out here so much? Like, you know, this is not going to work. This and this, all these stories start to come up. I'm driving, I'm passing Beverly Hills. I remember I'm like, I got off at the exit because the stores are getting fucking large, they're getting huge, and they started to get really believable. So I drove, got off Beverly Hills, started driving the street really slow so I could think about it, contemplate on it. And I was like, why don't you just go and just see how you feel when you get there. And so that day was really just like the turning point, the pivot point where everything really changed for me because I went that day, and up until that point, the first 2 days, I wasn't having any success at all. Like I get a little piece of success, but I had a lot of rejection. And it was just shutting me down. I didn't want to be back out there. I don't want to be feeling that shit, right? And so on the third day I went, and I remember it was a struggle to talk to anybody the first maybe hour or two. So I would just walk around the beach, kind of lost in my thoughts, didn't know what to do. And then, if I found a girl, I'll make sure she wasn't around anybody else so I wouldn't have that fear of being seen doing it. And, so I did it. I got a couple in that day, and that day it started to get better. Like I started to see a whole lot of what Brian was talking about, like the realizations that you have. And the realizations that you have when you're doing this work, it always tends to come back to something that Brian said before. And so I'll be sitting on the bench, I'm like, oh, that went really well. That's so strange, why did it go like that? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's because of this. And it'll hit me as I'm walking, like, oh, fuck, Brian said that. And so I'm like always excited to be like, okay, cool. It's like positive reinforcement towards the work that I'm doing to myself. So I was out there third day, I was meeting girls. The fourth day I met a girl. The fifth day, I kept going, right? So probably on the third or fourth day, I was really just enjoying being out there. And I couldn't wait to go talk to girls. And so my energy has shifted around it as opposed to going out there being like, I got to go find a girl to talk to. I got to get something, kind of like this taking energy. And it was just more like I was excited to be out there. So I started to get Insta dates at some point in that first 4 or 5 days where I was just going up and meeting the girls. And the first couple of seconds, I was like, what are you up to right now? And they're like, oh, I'm just shopping. I'm like, can I roll with you? Like, yeah, for sure. Or I'd be like, I'd be more direct, but I'm like, yo, you want to go grab a coffee or something like that? And they'd be kind of, worry about it at first. Then they're like, yeah, okay. All right, so it started to get like that. And that started really becoming the normal that whole week. So after that 5th day, the next day was like, I was getting insta dates for sure. Like I knew I was gonna get, insta date, insta date. I got so confident about it. Like one day, literally, I got maybe 5 or 6 of them in a day because it started really early. I would come out before all the shops opened up at 3rd Street Promenade. I'd be out there like 9 o'clock. I'd be out there feeling my body, really getting into really feeling myself. At least an awareness of my body, so I wouldn't be in my head when I talk to people. And that was a crazy day. I remember I met a girl. I had gone like to 800 Degrees Pizza with her, and I actually tried to kiss that girl, and she totally wasn't feeling that. And she said, I have a boyfriend. And I was like, oh shit. So that put me in my head, and I was just kind of like, okay. I just called it out. I was like, I'm sorry. I don't mean to invade or whatever. If you're not feeling this, totally get it. And so she left, and walking down the beach again, met another girl who was kind of watching the show. She was watching the street performance, and I saw her in this dress, and it was just really amazing. Walked up and chatted with her for a bit. We ended up going down to the Santa Monica Pier, hanging out there for a little bit. Went to this little aquarium that they have downstairs. She paid for me to get in and everything like that. Hung out for a bit, and we split up. Met another girl. I'm trying to meet this girl. But she was basically standing here. She was overlooking the water and all this stuff, overlooking PCH, and I talked to her for a little bit. Then we started walking, started hitting it off pretty well. She wanted to see the aquarium too. We went to the aquarium, started walking down the beach, pretty far down, and it was just like it was really going well. And I was getting numbers. It was getting more interesting. So at that point, what I really wanted to do is sort of vain, right? But I literally want to take a girl home and have sex with her. That's really what I wanted, if I'm being really honest. And I remember I met this girl in the parking lot, and she had a really good energy to her, and I was feeling really low in my body. And you guys might not get the concept of that, but you know, Zan talks about kind of having that downward energy, like gravity, the gravitational pull to the earth. I was feeling that. I remember when I met her, and she was gorgeous. Like really, I would say if I had a girl who had a look that I wanted for a girlfriend, it was her for sure. And so I had talked to her for a little bit, and we were just locked in, like gazing in this parking lot for probably about 10 minutes. I remember being so fucking nervous. My hand wouldn't stop shaking and shit. My body was kind of jittering or whatever. But it felt good. The interaction felt good, and it felt really solid, and I got her number. But I also didn't think anything of it because I hadn't been getting numbers that whole week anyway, and some of the girls didn't reply, so I was just like, whatever, it's another number. But I felt something strong about that one. I was like, this one's pretty good. This one's pretty awesome. And so I hit her up later. I think a day later I hit her up, and she was getting off work. She had worked in the area. And she was like, I was like, what are you up to? She was like, well, I'm headed home from work right now. And I was like, okay, cool, awesome. She's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just kind of hanging out here. I was really just out doing approaches the whole day because I was already out there. And she was like, and I was like, you want to go hang out for a bit? And she was like, yeah, she was open to it. And so this girl came, she pulls up, picks me up from the alleyway, and it's like brand new Mercedes Benz. And I was just like, at the time I had self-esteem issues, right? And my whole self-esteem thing was like, I'm not good enough for women. Women are above me. People who have money are above me. Because I came from an impoverished mind state, right? I was born in Compton, lived in Inglewood, and all the shit that I had just backed up self-beliefs, pretty shitty self-beliefs about myself. And so all this stuff started maybe going into my head. I started to see her. She had this really fucking nice car. She dressed really fucking nice. She had this beautiful fucking house in like Brentwood. She took me to her house and all this stuff, and I was just like really fucking like thrown off by it. And I didn't know how to handle it really. And I remember just being in her living room talking to her, and my body was just doing that shaking thing, that jittering thing, and I'm just like, so that whole thing kicks on, and we're sitting there, and I'm like, I want to get closer to her. So I go on the couch, I kind of sit to her, I grab her legs, I put them up on me, we're kind of talking, I'm like rubbing her feet. And it was going extremely well. And at some point in that, I was like, okay, it's getting late. I was like, I'm gonna head back home. But she had drove me there. And she was like, well, I'll take you home in the morning. And I was like, okay, all right. This is my 10, right? And I'm just like in so much disbelief about this shit. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I'll get you a towel, go take a shower. She has two bathrooms in this house, right? And so I go take a shower in one bathroom, she takes a shower in the other bathroom. And as I'm in the shower, I'm just kind of like, what do I do right now? Do I just I just go bust in that bathroom and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, that kind of thing and shit. Is that what she's expecting me to do? Or it's like, what the fuck is really going on there? And so I take the shower, and then I go and I sit on the couch. I go sit back on the couch, and she gets out the shower, and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just sitting on the couch, I guess. And she's like, no, you're gonna sleep in here with me. And I was like, okay, cool, let's go do this. So it's actually making me really nervous right now thinking about that. That was actually really fucking funny. So I'm sitting on the couch, and I get up and I go into her bed, and she puts on this night one-piece thing, this no bra, no panties under, and I'm just like, wow. I'm just really fucking amazed by what's going on at the moment. Part of me in my head's still like, we're not having sex. I don't think it's gonna happen, because I'm still like, this whole self-esteem, this belief is like, okay, it's just really friendly. I'm just in bed with her, whatever. It's not going anywhere. And fucking, so I'm literally laying in bed on my back, looking at the fucking ceiling, and I'm thinking like, so what should I do? Do I touch her? What if I touch her and it's weird? And she's just like, don't touch me, like sets the boundary. And the other part of me is like, well, we're in bed together, and she's in this one piece thing, and she's like, what am I supposed to expect? And so I remember I rolled over. Actually, I touched her, I gathered around, I started talking to her. So totally nice guy shit. So I have a conversation with her, and whatever. And eventually I started touching her, and eventually I started touching her, and it gets pretty heated. It gets pretty hot and heavy, and what you imagine what happened did happen, right? And so that whole stretch of time of going out to 3rd Street and approaching and doing all that stuff, it just really built up. You know what I mean? I learned so much from out there doing it. Sorry, that story's got me tripping out right now. Actually thinking about it, still my heart is still kind of like. Actually, I got back to my car that morning, and somebody had stole my fucking somebody had stole my. I had a Honda. They stole the H off of it. They stole the front bumper off of it. But I was totally chill about it. I was like, it's whatever. I don't care. That was my 10. That was my 10. I'm driving home, my car's all beat up and shit. I'm just like, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna go home and take a shower. I'm gonna come right back out here anyway. So, that was pretty awesome, man.
She took your innocence,
Yeah, she took my innocence. Yeah, totally. I made that thing really weird. She wouldn't hit me up later. She just stopped. But that was me, because I was just really uncertain about that whole dynamic of it. I didn't know how that was supposed to work. I was just like, yo, I've never taken a girl home that I met outside on the street before. I didn't know that was possible. I heard stories about it, and when it actually happened, it was just like, okay, all right, cool. I can get used to this, but it took a while to get used to it, really. So, and then that happened. Then I remember a couple of days later. Actually, it might have been the same day. Actually, I came back out, want to do more approaches, and this is probably around like maybe 8 o'clock at night. I'm walking down the street, and I'm just like, let me stop this girl and ask her where Joe's Pizza is, because we do this exercise where we have you guys do indirect questions, which is like ask for directions, ask for time, ask for things like that. And I see this girl, she's standing outside the pub, and I'm like, hey, do you know where Joe's Pizza is? And it's a pretty well-known pizza place over there, and I'll always ask this question. And she was like, Joe's Pizza, what's that? And I was like, hey, this is supposed to be a pizza place around here, it's supposed to be really good. And I already knew what that place was. I've been there millions of times. And she's like, nah. Where are you from? And I was like, I'm from LA. Oh, okay. She's like, damn, you're sexy. And I was like, what the fuck? And this girl was hot too. This girl was also 10 standard, right? And she starts talking to me. As she's talking to me, she's kind of backing into this alley a little bit. And it's kind of like, okay. It's not strange for me, because I'm attracted to her, right? And I'm like, cool, I want to go this direction. And so she keeps asking me questions about me and myself. She's like, hey, you from LA? This and this and this and this. And she was like, okay, cool. And so every time she would say something, she would drop into her sexual. And I would feel it. I'm like, okay, what's going on here and shit? All right, she keeps backing up, and I keep getting close to her because I can feel it. And I just start making out with her. And this is probably just like maybe 4 or 5 minutes into the conversation. And I was like, that's fucking crazy, dude, because none of this shit was working before. Right? I couldn't feel what somebody else was turned on. I couldn't feel all that stuff. I couldn't access my own turn on to save my life. And so that's the kind of crazy shit basically that happens when you're out there and you're learning how to do. You're trying to approach girls in a day. You guys call it day game, or just approaching girls in general. A lot of crazy shit can happen just by going out there and doing it, man. Stepping into that level of attention, really, it becomes fun. And that literally took about a week's worth of time. And I was out there for about 2 weeks, and I did some other crazy stuff out there too. I had some fun. But yeah, that was really a pivotal point in my life. So I just want to go back now. When I go back to LA and do some more. These self-belief stories that you guys have that make you guys not go in to talk to the girl, like those kind of things, those worries. it's just white noise in the background, right? You never know how it's gonna be when you actually go up. Like when you went up to that girl, I saw her. She was just super like, oh, thank you. Like she really took it in really fucking well, right? But your belief system was just kind of like, nah, what's the point? Why even bother? And it's always different than what we think it's actually going to be. You got a question? What's up?
Yeah. Was there, I'm sorry if I missed it, was there like a point when you started to feel you were accessing your turn on? Or was it just experiences that were allowing you to do that? Like was there like a moment, like an aha or something?
You know what? Not a real aha moment, but I think what really started to happen is when I started to enjoy it, that was the whole turn on of it. Like I started to feel that turn on, but that turn on was actually what made me start enjoying it. Not even recognizing that that's what it actually was. Because when I started doing it, I was really stiff, and I would do indirect openers, and I wouldn't do directs because I was just like, I don't want to get rejected that hard. I feel like if I got rejected that hard, and my self-esteem shit would get triggered up again, and I'd be sitting there for an hour trying to release on the shit, like that whole thing, right? And so I think it was actually comfortable being sexual, vocalizing it. That's when it became fun, and I think that's the whole turn on thing. You got to have that level of turn on in order to access that. Otherwise, you're not going to say things that are sexual that you want to say. You're not going to feel it. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it came from, really.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
Like, when you're like approaching girls, like, and you practice a lot, you get to that point where you can like start feeling also that energy or whatever you guys were talking about grounding. Like I mean, are you able to identify at some point like, okay, her energy is also somewhere here, or no, not really?
Yeah. Then I couldn't tell. Not until I became a coach and started working with these guys, I started to be able to tell. But not before it, no. No, but you can definitely.
Yes, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. But you can feel when the girl's relaxing. You can feel like when you walk up to her, she's up here and she's kind of like nervous and she's tight, she's tense, and her chest is all like that. I can see that now for sure. But before I used to take it as rejection, I used to be like, oh, she doesn't want to talk to me, she wants me to leave. Yeah, totally. So the minute you stop taking it as rejection, you start to be like, oh, she's just nervous. Like then you start to be like, okay, cool. Can I kind of calm her down a little bit? And the way you do that is you got to calm yourself first and allow her to come down to her comfort zone. Otherwise, if you're as nervous as she is, she's gonna bail out because it's a lot more tension for her. In my experience.
You can actually see it in girls walking down the street. So just in general, where they're walking, if they're up high or here, down really low. Yeah, when they're walking really low, you'll see a lot of guys starting to look at them more because they'll be walking and they're turn on more, their lower energy rolling down here. The guys will be like, wow, there's something about her.
Wow.
And when she walks from up here, you're not going to feel as much going on. Even and so yeah, that's when you guys notice a girl that you would technically say, well, she's not super hot, but I'm just completely drawn to her, and that's because she's usually walking low in her turn on, something like that. I had an ex-girlfriend that could do it at command. She could just drop down into her hips because she was trained. She was trained how to do it, and you just see the head snap when she would do it. It was pretty amazing.
I had this girl at work. She walks in that turn-on thing, and when you see her walking, the only word that pops into my head just keeps repeating is sex. I swear to God, it's just crazy.
It's just badass. Yeah. Right on. See you have a question?
What do you do to, I think we talked about this a little last night, what do you do to develop your turn-on? Like I was getting some advice from Mike last night. It's like the girl told me I felt calm and stuff, but like I was only feeling like down to my stomach. I wasn't going anywhere. Like how do you develop that? Is it like some true yoga stuff, or what do you do?
Brian teaches a really good movement course. It's actually more about feeling the energetics behind what's really in the body. Because you got your physical body, but then you also have the energy that's running, right? And that sexual thing is more of an energy. It's more of a flow that you feel in your body coming up and down this region right here. So when you turn it on, you're really just enjoying that energetic kind of flow that's going on here. And when you're in that, it almost seems like you can do no wrong when you're talking to women, right? It's just like you can have a regular conversation with that energy going, but that regular conversation just feels a little bit sexually charged versus doing it from your head where it's like, hey, where are you from? This and this is like, hey, where are you from? Right? And you start to see her kind of get a little bit sultry too, and it's like that, it feels like that. So I would say I don't know, it's a good practice for that, really. Rocking your pelvis, right? That's when you gave us. It's really rocking your.
Rocks. There's all kinds of pelvic movements you can do, meditations you can do. Ruang is going to probably talk
Yeah, yeah, but it's powerful once it's on, man. It's powerful once it's on. When it's on, you gotta not be apologetic for it either, because a lot of shame, or it's a lot of shame around that area sometimes for most of us, especially nice guys. So if you start feeling it, welcome some of that shame up too as well. Hey, what's up, man?
Hey, you were telling me I was doing good last night, but like I didn't feel it. Is that similar to like the disbelief that you had? Is that
Yeah, well, this is the 1% thing, right? You're making 1% shifts, but you're expecting to see this really big change. Like, okay, you want the girls to start liking you already, and you start getting that back. But it's like when you came at first, you weren't feeling your feet. You're really aloof, and I was like, feel your feet. As soon as you start feeling your feet, the dynamic of your next conversation changed completely. Like it felt a lot different. The girls were a little bit nervous, but you were super grounded. But like that whole thing, I was like, I wanted you to come a little bit closer to the girls and talk to them. You were pulled away. So this whole thing is like Brian always said, it's a compound interest, right? You got a 1% here, 1% here, 1% here. But notice your little 1% changes, because the more you notice them, they expand. And that's what I was doing when I was on Third Street for like that 2 or 3 weeks I was out there. It was just like beat myself up at first. The minute I started beating myself up, I started to see where everything was going right in each interaction. I was like, okay, cool. It didn't end like I wanted it to, but I was like, cool. I stood my ground. I was really in my body the whole time. I felt my feet. I felt contained. I felt like she was comfortable for the most part. And I started noticing it, and start writing down in my journal. And so all those 1% picked up over time and just started compounding. And next thing you know, by the end of that week, you've kind of embodied all the stuff that you've been working on, and it starts to become your baseline pretty much. Like I still have all that stuff with me to this day. So you're not going to see your 1%. People are going to see it usually before you do anyway. You're going to see the shift in you. They're going to be like, something different about you. You're going to be like, nah, I don't feel any different. But even the results, the girls, all that stuff around you is going to start changing before you even start to notice it in yourself. Hey.
I noticed last night when we were going out there, when we were going out there, we had to make the approaches. I was kind of putting some pressure on myself, and I was like, whenever I'd start putting pressure on myself, I kind of locked down. You know what I mean? I start saying, maybe since I was a kid, I started saying, no, I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I started watching that UFC fight. You know what I mean? And I started kind of getting excited or relaxed from that. And then after that, it seems like when I started like flirting a little bit with the waitress or whatnot, then I was just kind of like, it started happening more naturally. You know what I mean? I just started talking to her, like a softer voice and just nicer to her and stuff like that.
You mean as a result of watching the UFC?
What I'm saying is, I think the UFC put me in a relaxed state, and then I was able to just talk to these women normal without like the pressure of, oh my god, I gotta make a couple of these, hey, how are you? You know what I mean? These you see what I'm saying? I just put me into a relaxed state, I want to say.
Yeah, and that's how it's always supposed to be, really.
Yeah.
But at first, you got to go out and do the approaches to bring out the weeds and pull the weeds out, all the nervous stuff, all the insecurities that you have going and running. You got to pull those out first, so you can get to that place where it's just like you run into a girl by chance, and it's just like, oh, hey, what's going on? Where are you? Yeah. So once you get to that place, that's just gonna be your baseline, completely. And when I run into girls in the club now, it's just like I don't make this conscious effort of being like, I'm going to go over there and say this. It's more like I walk into it and I just fill it out. I'm just like, hey, how you guys doing? And that's where it starts.
It's a lot more natural when you're just kind of flowing, when you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's all supposed to be like flowy, So, you guys are just doing the approaches to work the kinks out, so you can get back to that flowy state of it and have it be really natural. Once you guys get that flowy state of it, you can feel where it's going sometimes. You're like, okay, this may lead to sex. This may not lead to sex. Whatever the case may be, you can actually feel it within that flow of the conversation. You know what I mean? And that starts to be really good.